This program is brought to you by Emory University.
A 90-mile-an-hour fastball, which is about the major league average, and which is realistically the speed a high school or college pitcher needs to hit before he becomes even mildly interesting to the scout holding the radar gun. It reaches home plate in 42 hundredths of a second, 0.42. That's assuming the distance of 55 feet from the pitcher's release point at full extension on the front slope of the mound to the front of home plate. For an average college pitcher whose fastball sits in the mid-upper 80s, the time from release to home plate is about 44 hundredths of a second, 2 hundredths of a second slower. That difference sounds negligible, but in the world of scouts, prospects, and hitters, that's all the difference in the world. Give a batter that extra 2 hundredths of a second to see the ball, track its path, and decide whether or not to swing, and what was a fairly evenly matched competition between batter and pitcher becomes more like batting practice. Here are the numbers for a hitter. Once the swing begins, the bat's in motion for about 150 milliseconds, 0.15 seconds, before it strikes the ball at the forward edge of home plate. That's the location where the maximum kinetic energy of the swing can be transferred from bat to ball. Physiologically speaking, the swing actually begins some 20 or 30 milliseconds before the bat actually starts to move. But in that preliminary, minuscule time frame, as in the initial fraction of a second before the big bang, there's nothing to see. The only thing going on is invisible and electrical, the innervating of bundles of muscle fibers by hundreds of motor neurons. Note that if the batter misjudges the speed of the ball and starts his swing as little as 10 milliseconds, 0.01 seconds, too early or too late, he'll hit the ball foul down the left or the right field line. The time the bat is actually in contact with the ball is only about 1 millisecond, during which the bat moves in its arc, only about an inch. Yet for that millisecond and that inch, the ball will be compressed up to half its diameter. Put a baseball on a hard surface and press down it with all your weight to get some idea of the terrific force that develops in the bat-ball collision. These are ideal figures, however, obtained from laboratory experiments, and in actual games so many variables come into play that it's impossible to specify optimum batting mechanics or even the best size and weight for a bat. In most game situations, very little separates a home run from a lazy fly to the warning track, or a seeing eye base hit from a routine ground out to short. Ted Williams thought batting was as much art as it was science, and many ball players throw a little bit of voodoo into the mix as well. Both points of view are probably valid. The act of hitting, says a scientist who has extensively researched the physics of baseball, is in itself complex and not precisely understood.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.